PGCE Research Bites, student-teacher research from the team behind Emma and Tom Talk Teaching. Hello and welcome to another episode of PGCE Research Bites, where we bring you examples of some of the best student-teacher research coming from the Cardiff Partnership for Initial Teacher Education. And joining me today is Megan Cole, who is right in the final stages of PGCE Primary. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you in. And you're talking about your first assignment, which actually took place quite some time ago. We've all had to have a little bit of a revise of this one before we started recording. You were asked to take a topic which your lead partnership school had given you, narrow it down, and then look at the literature and come up with some recommendations for your school. So I suppose the first thing to ask you is, what did the school ask you to look into?
So my research champion at my clinical practice 1 school and my lead partnership school gave me 6 themes. And the 2 that really stood out to me were Welsh as a second language and independent learning. And kind of when I considered the fact that I was in a reception class for my CP1 school, and after taking time to observe my class, independent learning really stood out to me, and in particular learning through play. So it was my first ever time in kind of an early years classroom. And it was interesting to me that they had so much time kind of playing. But then when you actually think about the fact that it is all structured and it's child-led to an extent, but the actual impact that has on the child, that was kind of interesting to me to research more into.
Yeah, as a secondary specialist, I just am in awe of what you guys do in those early years sort of settings. It's so different in the planning and the delivery, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks completely different. And you had this topic because your school was really keen on improving their independent learning. Was that a recommendation they've been given?
Yes, it was in their Eston report.
Right.
And it was kind of, they needed to promote more independent learning, which was interesting in the early years kind of setting.
Yeah, we see quite a lot of these research assignments on things like play or, in fact, outdoor learning, which I know comes later on in your assignment. And one of the kind of traps with it is to become really kind of uncritical about it. Oh, yes, play. Oh, it's lovely. Oh, being outside. Oh, it's really nice. You know, how were you able to kind of dig into it to make sure that you came out with something solid and not just, oh, we should all have a lovely time?
So when I started researching independent learning, there was a plethora of literature about the impact it has on early childhood development. And after attending uni lectures about childhood development and also SLT tasks about development, that was kind of an area of interest to me. So when I really started looking into it, it was about the different aspects of childhood development that it touches on. So it's not just, oh, it's play, it's lovely. Actually, it does all have an influence over the development of the child.
Yeah, so to the untutored eye, I suppose, it looks like they're all just having a lovely time, but they are actually learning really important skills for later on.
Yeah.
And you did dig into some really quite kind of hardcore, seminal, psychological stuff, didn't you? You came across the work of Vygotsky and dug into that. What did you find there?
So one of my articles,
I think it was the 3rd or 4th, wasn't it? I'm leaping ahead here.
Yes, so one of my articles was by Kolova and Varakska, and it was published in 21, and it kind of looked at Vygotsky's contributions to the understanding of emotional development through early childhood play. And I thought this article was interesting because it attempted to build upon Vygotsky's model of child cognitive and emotional development as it kind of arises through child-led play. So using his perspective, they kind of highlighted how children use play to reflect on their emotions without consequences, and it kind of gives them a safe space to explore how they're feeling and then lead to self-regulation of their emotions. So I thought it was quite interesting how they used Vygotsky's research but kind of criticised it and used it to build on what they thought.
So easy to see these kind of, really quite old sources, the original sources, people like Vygotsky, as completely detached from the day-to-day kind of rough and tumble of the classroom. But actually there are still authors finding relevant things for us today. Yeah, it was good to see. And one of the good things that's really nice about your assignment is the way you do kind of go on a bit of a journey through your 6 articles. It's quite tempting sometimes with 6 articles to kind of bang the same point out 6 times or say 6 completely detached things that don't really join up. So once you found the Vygotsky thing, we got something else looking at the Vygotsky as well. And then you moved on to Forest School. Tell us about that.
I did, yes. So obviously play is a massive thing inside the classroom, but there's also an opportunity to kind of develop it outside of the classroom as well. And how most people do that is through Forest School. So after looking at indoor play, I kind of switched my focus to outdoor play. And I looked at one of the articles by Coates, and it kind of explored how outdoor play through Forest School kind of gives the opportunity to develop physical gross motor skills that are required during physical development. So the author kind of highlighted how Forest School provides children with the opportunity to explore adult-led play and child-led play. And one of the interesting things that came out of it was risky outdoor play, which is kind of play that involves lots of running around, kind of almost giving them the chance to fall over and hurt themselves. And it's kind of a learning opportunity for the children then, because once they've done it, they kind of know how they did it and they'll learn from that.
So what are your thoughts then about Forest School? Is it something, did you get to do it or would you like to do it?
I would like to do it, yeah. So I did a Forest School in my clinical practice 1 placement, but it was before this assignment. So now looking back, I think I would take away kind of the control that I took over the children and kind of let them explore a bit more, let them hurt themselves, let them run around, let them climb the trees and kind of see how that develops them physically.
It's quite a subtle thing then, this Forest School thing. So you're not just teaching a teacher-led lesson in a forest. Yeah. There's a little bit more to it than that. Is that not really scary, letting children run around and potentially fall over things?
It is really scary because obviously you've got to take the control with them. You've got the responsibility for the children that if they do fall over and get hurt, then you've got responsibility for that. Like that is kind of your job as a teacher to look after these children. But I think it's one of the important things that you have to kind of let go of and just let them explore, because while giving them taking the control away from them and teaching them what you think they need to learn is obviously developing their cognitive mindset, but it's also, you kind of have to take that away slowly but surely, take it away even more and then see how they kind of learn from that.
So these early year teachers have really got quite a responsibility, haven't they? Because that independence, if it doesn't come, it has an impact all the way through education, doesn't it? And so although it may look like you're just letting them loose in a forest or just letting them play with toys or something like that, there's a really important side to it.
Yeah.
And you made some recommendations for your school. I can see actually they were coming throughout the assignment. You didn't even kind of wait to the end, but you did come up with a lovely sort of pre-packaged set of recommendations for your school. So I suppose the first question from me is, what did you actually, having read this really interesting range of articles, everything from kind of, pulling apart seminal psychologists right through to letting kids run around in forests, what did you come up with as recommendations for your school?
So when I was looking at the recommendations, I didn't want to just kind of give away throwaway recommendations that weren't backed up by the literature. So they all kind of came from the sources. So the first one kind of comes from the first article I looked at, and it was like that teachers could offer a variety of kind of unstructured toys and encourage the children to independently explore alternative endings to stories, because that then develops their imagination and their creativity. The second one kind of links on to that one, is that teachers could create opportunities for children to explore storytelling through object personification and ventriloquism, because there's research out there that shows if you're kind of giving, I don't know, a little toy, like doll, a character and a voice, it kind of develops their creativity, their imagination, their storytelling skills, and ultimately lead into like better language skills, like further on in life. There was also another one about teachers could allow children to role play after listening to a story and then kind of bringing them back in and holding a reflective conversation with the teacher to kind of develop their language and comprehension skills, because there's lots of research out there that's very well reading them a story and then saying, okay, now go off and play. If you kind of give them the chance to then explore that story in their play, it kind of develops their understanding of what you're actually saying in the story. Another one was going back to the emotions and self-regulation, was that teachers could provide like a safe space in their classroom for children to go off, explore their emotions without consequence and without the teacher kind of saying, oh no, you can't do that, because letting them explore kind of figuring out their own way to deal with something will lead to better emotional skills in the future.
So you made this set of recommendations, but as you said, they're backed up by the literature. They're not just kind of nice ideas that you've pulled out of the air. You had to then present this in your school. So as a very, very new member of the profession, I guess at this point you've been going just a few months.
Yes.
You were up in front of a fairly successful school talking to them about what they could do about their Estin recommendation. How did that go and what was that like?
So I was very nervous going into it because I thought I can teach a classroom full of kids, but going into a room of professionals who know more about the field than I do is quite a scary, nerve-wracking thing. But actually, it was kind of the opposite. It was very relaxed. It was quite chilled. We just all sat around like a big table, and it was nice to listen to other student teachers' assignments too. And there was another person who did independent learning. Our assignments were completely different. So it was just really nice to be able to take the chance to listen to other people's and to just, in a relaxed environment, kind of talk about your assignment. And while there is so much pressure placed on it, it's not actually as stressful as you think. And it doesn't have to be perfect because the school can read your infographic, they can see your assignment, and they can learn from that. So if you don't cover everything you wanted to cover, it's not the end of the world.
Did you get a sense of what the school made of your recommendations?
Yes, so they actually really liked my assignment. They asked me to forward on my assignment and my infographic to them so that they could look into it more, and they liked how it linked to the Estin recommendations.
And next year, we're hoping you'll be somewhere nearby teaching in a school. You'll be at the start of your teaching career. You won't have to do assignments, but will this kind of process of reading and then boiling it down into something useful for your classroom and your pupils, do you think that's going to play any part in your future careers, or anything you particularly would like to do or find out about?
Yeah, so this assignment kind of opened my eyes into play and how important it is. And it kind of, learning through play kind of stops from year 2 onwards. So I think it would be interesting to kind of look into the influence that learning through play would have on older primary school children. Because who's to say that it should stop from year 2? It clearly has a massive impact on your development, and you don't stop developing at like 6 and 7 years old. Why should it stop in the classroom? I think promoting it throughout primary school would be an interesting thing to look into.
Yeah, so there is still quite a divide, is there, between the way that things are done right at the very beginning of school and then further up. It looks quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Okay, so you are in the happy position of being on the other side of this assignment. You've done it, you've presented it, you did very well. Lots of the people watching this, listening to this, will perhaps be on the other side of that, maybe just starting out. So having done it and having done well, what would be your top tip for the people that come after you?
I suppose my first one would be making use of your mentor and your clinical practice school placement. I took time to observe my class first before thinking about my theme, and it kind of showed which theme would be more important and more relevant to my classroom. So I would say take time to observe your classroom, speak to your mentor, see what they think you should look into, and also just pick something that you're interested in, because then reading the literature doesn't feel like such a chore, because there's so much literature out there that you've got to start reading early. But if you're not interested in the subject, then you're not going to want to research it. So I would say pick something that's you're interested in and make use of your classroom.
Yeah, and that's a lovely point about get to know your kids and your school so it actually does something useful in real life instead of just becoming words on a page, I guess. Yeah. Lovely. Well, there's loads in there for anybody wanting to look into this kind of thing. It's a great example of how quite a vague recommendation, independent learning, can become something really sort of concrete and really real, and something lovely for the pupils as well, because all of those recommendations, I can imagine that making a really lovely classroom environment as well. So thank you, Megan, for that. That was a lovely look through your assignment. Hopefully that's been something useful for you if you've been watching and listening, and we will be back with another PGCE Research Bite very soon. Bye for now. PGCE Research Bites comes from the team behind Emma and Tom Talk Teaching and is presented this week by me, Tom Breeze. It showcases the best student-teacher research from the Cardiff Partnership for Initial Teacher Education. Thanks to Megan Cole from PGCE Primary, who joined us today to share her research. Podcast artwork is by Beth Blandford and the music is by Cameron Stewart. Technical support from Peter Lambert and the studio manager is Adrian Rapps. PGCE Research Bites will be back soon.